Hello and welcome to the New Age Geek channel. If you're new here, we're building an inclusive space for people of all walks of life through the power of friendship, magic, and tabletop role-playing games. Tonight we have Investigation Check, our regular, irregular interview show where we dive into the lives of geeky creators to learn about their hobbies, passions, and the untold stories behind our favorite content. I'm your host, Joe, and I'm thrilled to have you join me on this quest. Tonight, we have, let's make sure I get these all right, Creative Director of Winter's Tale, Grand Master of Castleton, Duchess of Storytelling, and Queen of the Cliffhangers, AJ Winters. How you doing tonight, AJ?
Great. I love all the titles. It's incredible.
Okay, well, for those of the few people out there that don't know, where can people find you, AJ?
Okay. I got to put my interview hat on. I feel like there's a whole other vibe to this. You can find me over on Winter's Tales. Winter's my last name, Tales because I tell stories. Over on Twitch or YouTube. All over social media, everywhere. I run the first Dungeons and Dragons studio in Australia, and I make crazy, wacky actual play content. That's what I do.
Fantastic. Your link tree is in the chat now, so everyone can go ahead and follow you there on all the fun things. Yeah. If you're ready...
I was meant to update that.
You're good. I got it.
I am ready. I'm good to go. No, right. It's perfect.
Then we are going to dive in, and let's start back at the beginning. So,
okay.
Little AJ, what was
Little
AJ, you were back in a little wee high. What was your first kind of introduction into the geek space? Was it like a show or a movie or a book?
Ooh. I think it was playing pretend. I've always been a geek, a dork from early age. As soon as I could speak, probably even before that through interpretive dance, I was telling stories. I was being my wacky self. But I think it was being raised with so I have an older brother, and he sort of got me into a lot of the geeky projects and movies and things like that as well. So he was into dinosaurs and then Star Wars and all of the classics, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, that era. That was all influenced by him because I was just there and watching it with him.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely adopted that brand because in my teen years, my brother and I kind of swapped places.
Okay.
He became the cool one with friends, and I descended into hermithood and stayed inside and became incredibly pale. So, yeah, I wasn't that kind of kid when I was very young.
Okay.
I was blonde and tanned, and then around teens, we just kind of swapped places. Don't know what happened there.
I was going to say, was there something specific that kind of happened? Did you notice something changing in your life that you were like withdrawing from people, or is withdrawing even the right word? I will say.
Yeah, I don't know. Retrospectively, I think it was probably neurodivergence.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a kid, you can kind of be that type. You can be neurodivergent. You could be all over the place. And as soon as you're a teenager, you're sort of expected to have different qualities, and you have to sort of mold to what high school wants you to be. And I think at that point in where I was at, because I didn't know of the fact that I was neurodivergent, I think I just kind of became a different version to associate with the world in the way that I could.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Yeah.
So when you started to have this change, did your hobbies seem to change with it, or was it just kind of like your social circle just shrank in that way that it does?
I think it was more social circle, and then I honed in on my hobbies.
Okay.
Because when I was a kid, I would rope people into this. It sounds like I was very bossy. I probably was. I roped kids into different role-playing games, and I would tell stories, and I'd make movies with our home video camera and direct them. I'm definitely sounding bossy. I can hear it now. And I think when I started becoming more of the indoor kid and reading more books, I started doing the same things, just more for myself rather than conducting other people to do it. And then I guess in this sort of way that it is my backstory, when I started becoming an adult and actually doing this as a career, I started doing what I did as a kid again. I started roping people into projects.
Both sides just came together.
Yeah, it was a full circle.
Yeah.
It was a journey. We got there.
So, what was like the step that you went from like telling these stories with people in the schoolyard to finding yourself kind of just telling these stories to yourself? At what point do you start to tell stories again with people in like the tabletop sense?
Ooh, well, how do I condense long story short?
Give me long story long. Give me long story long.
So I think that the insular, like working on my craft as a teenager, I mean, I think a lot of us storytellers went through the I'm going to write a book phase. Especially a lot of my female creatives. It's very, I'm going to be a young adult novel writer era. So I think I went through that. High school wasn't a great time for me, nor was university. I got very badly bullied.
Mm-hmm.
And then I worked in the film industry. So I did a double major in creative writing and performing arts because I've always been a theater kid and a writer. I mean, it's very cliche, but here we are. And I got so defeated in the theater that I detoured and I started working in film. So I became a freelance writer doing script writing, producing short films. And then I went over to the east coast of Australia and started working for reality TV shows.
Okay.
And some of the broadcasting channels over there. When I came back from that, I started working in marketing and social media. And so I started just gathering all these skill sets that I now use today. But I think what really got me from that to TTRPGs was just relearning who I was and what I wanted to do. Which was, at the end of the day, collaborative storytelling. So I found a medium that worked with that. I had played a few games of Dungeons and Dragons, and I realized around that time that I wasn't really seeing a lot of women in the space.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only female dungeon master I'd ever seen was Deborah Ann Wool at that time. And so I was very determined to go and become a female dungeon master on the internet to showcase that it could be possible. And decided that I was going to build a studio in Australia because there wasn't one, and do that.
What was that process like, just starting up this studio from the ground up, essentially?
So I started by working with a couple of other streaming groups or companies, basically going in as a player at first, and then producing or becoming the dungeon master for my own show within someone else's channel to learn how it works.
Yeah.
And I built up sort of a name for myself in that. So when I then launched Winter's Tales, I already had a bit of an audience that was interested in seeing the stories that I was going to be telling. And I started with world building because that's my bread and butter. So then I worked a job at the same time that I funded this studio, had a lot of help, built everything, made all the props, and then started, I guess. It was a financial stress, because this isn't cheap, but I had a lot of support from my family, which was really lovely, encouraging me to pursue it, and just a lot of people that were keen to see different stories, and a female at the helm of the show. So I think it was just the positivity from anyone who I spoke to that actually really made it happen, because when you mix your determination with kind and supportive people, I don't think there's a limit. You can just keep pushing and doing it.
So what advice would you have for someone else who's like in that situation and wants to make their own studio, whether they're, an underrepresented class less or whatever, I can't think of the right word right now, underrepresented in the space, or not, and they want to make their own studio, what kind of advice would you have for them in that, getting that journey started?
Ooh. Be prepared for the costs is the biggest one. If you're not prepared to fork out a lot of money, there are alternative ways to run TTRPGs without a physical studio. And I guess just keep trying, just keep going. A lot of people are going to be behind you if they want to also pursue that dream.
Mm-hmm.
But really work out what you want to do, I think, is my best piece of advice, because I speak to a lot of people who tell me they want to run a studio or want to do similar things to what I'm doing. And when I really start asking the poignant questions, it turns out they just want to play TTRPGs with people regardless. It's not the dream to have a studio. It's just, oh, that would be cool. Or I want to be around people when I'm playing D&D. All of that's possible. But you can scale it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to go all the way to build a studio and run a studio. There's steps in between that. I mean, Castleton, for example, doesn't actually need a studio to run.
Right.
And that's the biggest project I've done yet.
Uh-huh.
So it doesn't need it, but if that is your dream, just take it one step at a time, but make a financial plan. Write down a list of all the things you need to buy, all the hidden costs that you don't know if they will creep up or not, and prepare for that.
Yeah.
Because I certainly didn't.
Yeah. What would be the first question you pose to someone, like if they come and say, "Oh, I want to build a studio, or I want to take after you, AJ? I think you've done this amazing thing. You built up this amazing studio." What would be that first question you mirror back at them?
Why?
Okay.
Why?
Yeah.
Because thank you so much for the gift sub. Because the purpose of why you do what you do is going to be your main driving force. So if things go wrong or you don't have the money, you're always going to come back to the why you're doing it. And a lot of the times when I ask someone why, they'll go, "Oh, because I want to play D&D." And then I'll hone in and further ask, okay, so do you need to produce the shows, or can you just be a player in the shows, or do you want to be the dungeon master? What is it for?
Yeah.
For me, I don't necessarily need to be at the forefront of Winter's Tales. My dream for Winter's Tales is to basically be the Sam Reich of Australia. I'm happy to produce other people's content and create this hub in Australia for other TTRPG content creators, or even just creators in general, because the shows don't have to be related to TTRPGs. It could be anything we want to produce.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want to facilitate. Sorry.
No.
You sounded like you wanted to ask us.
You can always keep talking. That's never the issue. I have a question though. Do you think that there's a connection between your childhood, like directing as a childhood on the school ground, to today? Like, is that like a clear line?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so. I love telling stories. My ethos is all about collaboration and communication and creativity. Those are the three things that I value the most. It's why I do the insane projects that I attempt to do, because there are so many talented people in the world. There are so many different stories to tell. I'm not going to be able to tell all of them. I only have my perception of the world. So gathering other people to tell their stories or make their shows, that 100% is something that probably came from my childhood of wanting to help facilitate stories for others.
What is it about,
I guess,
showing these other people's stories, like bringing these people together and showing their stories? What brings you joy out of that? Because some people may look at that and be like, "You're just doing other, like you just what do you get out of that?" I'm in the same position as you, so I get it. I just want for the people that are.
Yeah. I think for me, it's the joy that everyone feels when they're telling it or when they've told it. I like to help other people achieve what they want to achieve. I was a motivational mental health coach for a time. I've had some. My resume's insane.
What haven't you done?
and in that, I was a motivational speaker. I did a couple of talks to groups of people about how to motivate oneself and what, striving for dreams and goals to be achieved. And if I can help do that with others, I'm gonna try, because that's what brings me joy.
Yeah.
Is helping other people succeed.
Okay. So
Yeah.
we've gotten through where we started the studio. What is like the first content you start to put out? What was that like, that journey for you? Like that first thing you just did by yourself?
So I started the YouTube channel with a show called World Builder,
Mm-hmm.
which was a show where I slowly built a world with the audience. So we did live streams as well as the final YouTube video that came out every Sunday. This was back when I lived in an apartment by myself, and it was 2 cameras and me, 2 cameras so that I could cut out all the mistakes and bloopers that I was making as I was doing it. And I just made videos in the way that I wanted to make them and uploaded them, and luckily people enjoyed them. And that world was the first world we played in
Mm-hmm.
for our actual play series. So the Chronicles of Aelwyn is the show that we do here in the studio. And I started the entire journey by building the world that they would then play that game in.
Wow.
So that was the first piece of content that I made, yeah.
And so that game was in person, right? When you finally did play that game?
Yes. That was the entire intention behind, well, not necessarily behind the studio, but made the studio more of a space that needed to be done.
Right.
Because I wanted to showcase more Australian performers. And I did 8 rounds of casting to find the group that we started with, because they all needed the chemistry off the bat, and I didn't have a group of friends that just played D&D.
Right.
So I needed to find the right group that could enmesh really well together. And then I pitched to them this amnesia campaign where each of their characters would wake up without their memories. And I asked them whether they wanted to know everything and build the character with me and then roleplay the amnesia, or whether they wanted to step into the studio day one with no idea who they were.
Oh, Jesus.
And every single one of them said, no, we trust you. You write the backstories. We'll come in and just, with an empty character sheet, play character bingo, I guess. And that's
that sounds like so much extra work for you as a DM.
Yes. But again, that's what I enjoy. I enjoy being able to facilitate stories for others. I mean, if you think that's crazy, we haven't even gotten into the cast.
We're going to get there. We're going to get there.
Like, that was just the first show I started.
So I do want to ask you about that, though. Like, a ton of shows that you see now in this space, Twitch and YouTube, it's all people talking over the internet, right? What is it like running an internet game that you're actually able to play in person? Because you've played in games where it's all through cameras, and you've played in-person games. What is the difference between those two in this space?
Ooh. To be honest, and this might be a controversial opinion, there's not much difference.
Okay. Because the perception is otherwise.
The perception is otherwise, and I think a lot of people struggle with online situations because they think it's not the same. They think they can't have that connection between players because there's a camera and a screen involved. But there are ways to learn how to still have that using cameras and connectivity over, like, online.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is to read people's facial expressions and their eyes and how they're looking at screens. Eventually, you can tell who someone is looking at by where their eyes go. And you can tell when someone's about to speak because of the way that they inhale. So if you're paying attention to those details, you don't have the number one complaint that people always say about online game is crosstalk, right?
Yeah.
People start talking at the same time with their other players, and it's hard to sort of get into the rhythm of it. But if you are reading other people online, it's very, very similar. And there's even a way to still be so emotional and so in-depth in TTRPGs using online platforms, that it's very similar to being in person. I mean, I guess the only difference is you can't reach out and touch someone else's hand or something. But other than that, it can be very similar. It can be intimate. It can be emotional, hilarious. You can have those connections with other players. I've seen some of the best role-playing that I've ever experienced in video calls rather than around the studio table.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it hasn't happened around the studio table, but I have seen some incredible stuff online. So I don't think there's much of a difference that we think there is.
That's interesting. Now, I was not prepared for that answer. All right. It's got me on that. You got me on that one.
Okay.
So we're gonna just move on, I think, because I don't even know how to follow that up. So we come from that in-person game, and now we're starting a game with what are the numbers at now? Over 100. What's your numbers?
Okay. I did read over my character list earlier this morning. We are sitting now over 120.
What made you decide to do this insanity?
So I had the concept of the Hunger Games meets Bridgerton in a D&D setting. The Hunger Games prequel movie had just come out. I think it came out in December.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this idea in November leading up to our 2nd anniversary on Twitch on the 1st of December last year. So I had this idea already. And then I successfully did a 48-hour calamity with 48 TTRPG creators, which was really good fun. So that was a concept where I destroyed a world and then rebuilt it in 7 games over 48 hours. With world building segments in between to sort of shuffle the world around of how it had been altered by the previous one shot and then fed into the others.
Okay.
And that had gone well enough to organizing 48 content creators was, at that point in time, I thought insanity. Then I had this concept that I wanted to do, and I knew that it could be Game of Thrones level intricate with the amount of characters that can be involved. I didn't expect that many people to sign up. I was expecting maybe double what we had for the 48-hour calamity.
Yeah.
But when we ended up tripling it to start off with, that was genuinely insane. And then I just kind of had to keep going because so many people had signed on that I was happy to facilitate that and started putting things in place to make it possible. I didn't really consider that many people would sign on, so I don't think I considered the ramifications of what it would become story-wise, but I don't regret anything. It's the best thing I've ever made.
Yeah. So, number one, where did you even advertise this? Because I didn't remember seeing anything about this, and then suddenly we all remember the day. It was I'm in Castleton, everyone's feeds the whole day.
Yes. I put out a video explaining my pitch, and basically there was a call out at the end of the video. It was a 1-minute reel saying, if you're interested in being a part of this, hit me up, send me a message. I already had most of the people from the 48-hour calamity say, whatever project you're doing next, I'm on.
Yeah.
So there was already roughly about 40 people that had re-signed on for this project already.
Perfect time to start casting.
And then, great time to start casting. And then this video it didn't go viral,
right.
but people shared it with all their friends, and I started getting an influx of messages from people. And so many people were keen on the idea of it because it sounded hectic. And within about, I want to say 48 hours of that video launching, there was then a Discord server created with all of the players. And it was insane. For a good 48 hours, the Discord notifications didn't stop.
Yeah.
Because it was also, all of us were international, so genuinely the messages never stopped. And then I had a one-on-one video call with every single player to create their character and put them in the world, and it went from there.
Yeah, so this was fast. This happened like just instantly. 100+ people phone calls, personal phone calls. I'm sure that just went breezed through.
I think I smashed out 150-ish in a week.
That's
in a week and a half, maybe.
Insane.
I was also away, so I posted that video and then I flew to Auckland, and so I wasn't even at my house for that first month of all the video calls with every person. And then I was preparing to start Castleton about 5 weeks later.
Okay.
So I enlisted all of those people, had a call with every single one of them, and then prepped to stream about 3-4 weeks after that.
Did that
Which,
actually
quite
work?
honestly, not enough time.
Okay.
It did work. I also did get hit by the train that was Castleton and sort of just had to hold on for dear life.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of things I've now put in place for Castleton Part 2 to prepare for how Part 1 went when that inevitably starts doing the same thing that happened last time. But it was probably not that much time to prep an entire new show, but it worked. It came to life. The brilliant thing was everyone else was advertising it for me.
Yeah.
We did a little post where people could put their image and say that they were in Castleton, and that went everywhere. We started getting the notice of TTRPG Twitter, which was terrifying. And then the show came out, and we suddenly were getting way beyond the views that we usually get. The cast became very enthusiastic about the show to an obsessive level, I would say. And it was beautiful. Everyone was supporting each other. I started seeing all of the cast members start creating more actual plays with each other or starting their projects because they had the motivation and confidence to do so, because no matter the size of their channel or if they had even started their actual play or podcast, everyone had a seat at the table for Castleton. So it really, really helped, I think, a lot of people feel like they could do anything they wanted to do, which, again, is what I want to do.
I was going to say, that must be just right up your alley, like just facilitating all these stories being told, even if you're not directly connected to them.
Yeah.
I want to ask, what is this process like for creating the story of Castleton? Because I'll be honest with you, I'm only on episode 4 because I was catching up.
That's still impressive. Please do not apologize. If you're up to episode 4,
binging.
that's still 16 hours of content. That's insane.
So, I mean, from what I've been watching, it seems like you write your scenes and then let them play in it. Is there more to it, or like, are you... How in depth are you writing out every episode, every situation? Because I know some DMs are either nothing or everything.
Yeah, I think you're gonna hate the answer. I have not written a single note down.
That sounds like me. You're good. We're on the same team here. Just improv everything.
I truly don't understand how I've done it. I know that I've told a lot of stories in the past through improvisation and having it all just in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have 120 characters and all of their plot lines and all the inevitabilities of what that could lead to all in your head, you start to really question your own sanity just a little bit.
Okay.
Especially when I started getting into part 2, because we've had a couple of months gap.
Yeah.
And yet my brain still remembers all of the character names, all of their plot lines, what they want to do. And I had catch-up calls with every player before we're kicking off with part 2 to sort of see where their characters are heading and developing. And again, all of that is still just in my head, which I think I need to write notes down. probably at some point.
Just hire
So
someone so
far,
obsessed with the show to write your notes for you and just email them to you.
maybe. There is a couple of incredible players who have been writing conspiracy notes and taking notes of each of the episode and stuff. So I have asked them to to potentially gather some of their notes for us. And we're trying to put up a Wikipedia page
Uh-huh.
for anyone who hasn't caught up with all of part 1 to be able to read up on the characters and the episode recaps and things like that as well. So that's in the works.
Okay. So, like the scenes where it's like someone's reciting a speech or something like that, you don't have any of that prepped? And are you saying that lot? Because maybe, like I said, I'm watching on YouTube, so maybe I'm just not seeing the cuts in the edit, but it seems like you're repeating the same lines over and over again through the different scenes that you do.
Oh, yeah, you've gotten to the combat section. No, I never wrote that down. I just remembered what I had said in the previous session and then started repeating it so that I knew where to cut together for blending the scenes. But yeah, no, that wasn't planned. I think the only speech that was written was the Duchess's speech at the opening ball, but I again didn't write that. I gave a gist to Emma, who plays the Duchess. I said this is kind of maybe the vibe. And she ended up writing the absolutely most perfect speech for it that ended up foreshadowing a lot of stuff that started happening. So it was incredible. No, none of that is written.
You're insane.
Yeah.
So how much longer is Castleton going to go? Let's finish up with Castleton before I start going into what the hell else you're doing, you lunatic.
Yes. Okay. So Castleton Part 2 is going to be where we wrap up the story.
Okay.
I don't know how yet, because it depends on all the choices the characters make. I gave the line to someone the other day, which is, the chips are going to fall where they may, and I'm just going to make a mosaic out of it. That's how that is going to go, because I can't prep how this will end with so many people making their own choices. So that's the goal. We're going to wrap the story for part 2. We're not coming back for a part 3. It's just not possible. It takes over my entire existence, and unless I was getting some sort of passive income at the same time, I truly can't afford to do that.
Yeah.
So this is going to wrap Castleton. How long that's going to take, however, is going to be up to the players again, because I'm aiming for about 10 episodes, or 10 main episodes.
Mm-hmm.
So about 10 to 11 weeks. If all hell breaks loose, then it could end up just being 6 episodes, or if we need an extra, my max is 12.
Okay.
I cannot go further than 12 to 13 weeks from the launch, because that...
Have you started recording or no?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. So what happens once Castleton wraps? What's the plan there?
Good question. There's a lot of things that are up in the air, but we are going to be re-streaming all of the actual play series that we started here in the studio as of January. So that's going to sort of overlap with the ending of Castleton.
Okay.
Which gives me a couple months of content of that coming out once a week to finish all of the editing of season 3 of that, which is also coming to a climactic ending over in the actual play show. So that will be most of the beginning of next year.
Okay.
Whilst we're starting to produce more content on Patreon, so that people who are fans of both shows can see behind the scenes content, can read up on lore, can meet some of the cast members through like video interviews and stuff like that. And then I have 2 shows in the back of my mind that I want to eventually produce. I have a variety of other shows that have been on the back burner for maybe 2 to 3 years. And then I have a potential Kickstarter I want to launch at the end of next year.
Can we talk about it or no?
Not yet,
okay.
Unfortunately.
All right, I won't push.
But But I think that's the first announcement I have done publicly that there may be a Kickstarter. So
Okay. Is it a
you get
book? Is it
a little bit
is
of
it
an
a
exclusive.
Is it a book? Is it a game that you're starting? Is it a story you're gonna tell?
It is a game
Okay.
that I'm putting together. Yeah.
You heard it here first. A Castleton rulebook.
No, absolutely not.
I mean, you've already got people saying that they're going to crowdfund season 3 of Castleton, so.
Jesus. Look, the only thing I would do a crowdfund for, and that is depending on how part 2 goes, is a prequel series,
Okay.
which explains how Castleton got to what it is
Okay.
in the current show. That's the only thing I will do.
Okay, so you're going to
And that
tag
would
me
be
in
way
that one,
less
right?
cast
You're
members.
gonna tag me in that one so I can play?
I think I might need to run auditions because I have too many cast members now. How will I choose? How can I choose? That would be like picking favorites.
You've
and I
known
don't
me
have
for
it.
like 50 minutes total in the entire time we've met.
I
You
know.
don't trust me enough to just say yes, absolutely? Come on, AJ, Jesus.
Jeez, Joe, way to put that on me.
All right. I want to ask, like, what is... I know you enjoy it, because that's obvious in the way you talk about it and the way you plan and the things you do. What is, like, how do you handle the stress that has to come with handling something this big?
Yes, good question.
Full of those.
My mom, shout out to Mama Winters. She likes to call me a little duck because on the surface everything seems calm, but underneath my little duck feet are paddling like a lunatic, as you have stated. How do I handle stress? I am very good at recognizing my own burnout because, spoiler alert, I have done that to myself quite often in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So now I know what my limits are. If I start feeling like I need time off, extra sleep, any sort of mental health break, I take it immediately because if I don't, worse things happen. So I know those limits. I think in terms of handling the stress, it's about having a support network.
Yeah.
I have incredible partners that are there for me. My family are always very, very supportive. I have some very good friends that I can lean on if I need. I think I had some of my friends genuinely cook me food and deliver it to my house during Castleton Part 1 because they could recognize that maybe I wasn't having full home-cooked meals, which was incredible. And I think it's just about knowing those things about yourself. Knowing your limits and knowing who you can lean on and who you can ask support from, which, like, quite frankly, is most of the Castleton cast now too.
Right.
Every single person I've spoken to in the cast is willing to jump in and help me in any way that they can, which is lovely and incredible. Sometimes it's not anything that someone can help with,
right.
but the offer is always still there. So that's beautiful to have. And just sleep. Please sleep. It's the one thing that will get you through.
Let me ask you this, like, running a game with over 100 people, I'm sure schedules are always... I mean, you try scheduling 4 people for a D&D game, that's nearly impossible. How do you manage scheduling all these games, and then if you need to, say, suddenly take off time for yourself, how do you kind of balance that? What does that discussion look like with your players? I'm sure they're supportive of it, but that's got to add stress to you too, just being like, hey, I need a minute to kind of get myself right.
So, again, I think people are going to get annoyed at this answer. Scheduling was probably the easiest part of Castleton Part 1.
Fuck you, AJ.
The reason being is there are so many cast members.
Yeah.
And so if one person can't make it, you shuffle around the group of people. The secondary element to this is that the way that Castleton is pre-recorded is it's done in scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And so players or player groups, which is a maximum of 6, they sign on for an hour recording session. I've had people sign on for their recording session during their lunch break because it's that short of time. And that's really easy for a lot of people to book in to their own schedules, because an hour is easier than going, oh, this one shot or this episode is going to be a 3 to 4 hour time block.
Mm-hmm.
1 hour is so much easier than that. So with both the ability to shuffle around players if need be, and then also the fact that it's only 1 hour at a time, it's easier to get groups of people together. Nailing the story aspects of that is a little bit harder. For example, if you definitely know that a group of characters need to meet for a plot reason, that's maybe a little bit more difficult, but eventually everyone finds a time. And I think it's also because of that enthusiasm and obsessive level that the players have all gotten to. I had people messaging me asking when their next recording session was, going, when am I next in? When you know, I really want to get back into the next session, because it's only an hour, so it's like drip feeding storytelling to people.
You're a monster.
And I'd have to reply and say, there's 100 and other characters that I need to have in scenes before I can bring you back in for yours. Like, please be patient. So people were chomping at the bit to get back into recording sessions, which meant that scheduling wasn't as hard as it seems. Which is, I know, a bullshit answer, and I'm so sorry for that.
So,
what was the original question?
I don't even remember.
Was it about the scheduling? It was the
stress,
process.
handling stress. Yes, the stress of.
Okay, so because it's only an hour recording session, a lot of the times I can message the group of people and say, I need to sleep longer, I need to take the day. And again, an hour is easy to reschedule or to push back by a little bit of time if need be. And so none of the cast, I think also they see how much I do for Castleton. Genuinely, the only thing I did during Castleton Part 1 for 2 months was run Castleton. I knew that was going to be the case.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything else. I also slept sort of like a new mum hours because it's an international cast. Sometimes that hour recording session would be in the middle of the night for me. So there were some days where I would go to sleep, get up at 3 o'clock in the morning for an hour recording session, go back to bed, sleep for another 3 hours, get up for the next one. It was kind of the same thing as getting up to feed a baby, put the baby back to bed, then you go get more sleep, then you get up again. And your body can do crazy things when you want to do those crazy things.
Yeah.
But again, then it's also recognizing, okay, when do I take the time for me?
Right. Yeah.
And in that last month, I'd say, of Castleton Part 1, I didn't really have a choice. I had to get recording sessions together so that the story was still functioning. And I also edited the show and did all the other stuff that comes with running a show. So by the time it got to the finale episode of Part 1, I was editing it as it was streaming.
Okay.
And that almost broke me.
Yeah, I can see that.
But hopefully we don't have to have that happen again.
All right. This is the most ridiculous interview I've ever had with someone. I want you to know that.
I don't know whether to be proud or offended.
It's definitely kudos to you, but Jesus Christ. Let me ask you this.
Okay.
As you kind of built up this, it's over 100 people. What was kind of the thinking behind how you're going to portray diverse characters in the medium, and was there a conversation you had with, like, making sure that these different peoples were represented a certain way, or you understand what I'm trying to ask?
Diversity was really important to me, especially because it's such a important factor to storytelling. I mean, like I said earlier, I am but one perspective and one perception of the world. There's no way that I could tell stories with backgrounds from other cultures because I am so incredibly white. All of my lineage just leads back to more white. And so for me, even though I was raised in a suburb that was all white British people, it was so important to me to hear other people's stories and to connect with other people and not make it a diversity quota, because
Right.
I think that that's so dehumanizing to only bring people in as an element of new and exciting. To me, it was to combine a group of people, a massive group of people, to all create characters that they could show their story and perception of the world through. Um, there's a lot of elements to Castleton. There's different nations, different mortal nations. There are the demigods, there are the gods themselves. And what I've loved is people have brought their experiences into their characters. I've had players who are mixed race who have then portrayed a character that is mixed race and used the experiences that they've had with that identity within Castleton to sort of approach those topics. I've had a beautiful example of a mother and son duo within the demigod city, where the mother and son spoke Spanish, and were portraying characters that were Hispanic, and that became celestial because she was a god, and so the celestial language now is Spanish in the world. And they were able to bring in cultural aspects of their background to the characters and seamlessly weave it into what Castleton became. And I think the brilliance of Castleton is that everyone is almost half world building themselves into the story because of the characters that they've created. So it allows for things like that. Some of the first demigods that are in the lore are played by the incredible Omega and Candace, the Magnificent. And both of them were really excited to portray their POC perspective into their characters. Like, we had two black demigods as the first demigods in existence. Rather than making that a hierarchical thing, they added it into their culture and into their friendship as those two characters. And I think that's just incredible. So I think naturally diversity can weave itself into the story without force feeding it. But you also have to be really conscious of it, because there is so many more active white players. And I say that not in the sense that there are more of them, because that might not be true. It's just that a lot of players that have the ease of getting into these stories are so much more loud and proud to put their hand up for a project. And so you see a majority first and foremost before you see the rest of it's like an iceberg, right? You see like the people that are being very enthusiastic. You're not seeing the rest of the players in the world that could be a part of it.
Yeah.
So you have to come in with intention to say, you know, I'm making sure that the cast is diverse, but also, again, not making it a quota.
What would you say to people who are like yourself, building a studio and are only that are just getting into this space? What would you recommend to them to ensure they're one, not tokenizing peoples, but two, making sure there's a space there for people who may, like you said, not be the loudest in the group, not part of that loud top of the iceberg?
Be open to communication and building friendships before the projects. I think a big part of this, and I say this as part of the Australian TTRPG community, something that is really lacking in the Australian TTRPG space is people of color. We had an incredible stream group that was full of people from the native peoples of Australia. But unfortunately, due to scheduling and lives, they're no longer streaming or a stream group. And so there is a limited amount of people that are in the forefront in Australia. And so for me, it was actually more vital than going out and seeking people, which seems really weird to put out a post and say, we're trying to find you, where are you? I just went and made friends with people of different cultures and different backgrounds. And then I also was open to those those conversations. I think that is the most vital part that I've learned, is because I'm still learning. I'm going to fuck up all the time. But I'm open to the criticism, I'm open to the communication and the conversations that need to be had in order to start bridging that gap. And so I will go and make friends, and then I will ask those people, hey, do you have any other recommendations of other people that I should connect with, of other people that I should make friendships with? And that's before even doing any projects, because I never want anyone to feel like they're just being hired because of their background.
Yeah.
But yeah, that also takes a lot of communication as well, because you could be completely innocent in the fact that you're bringing a POC player into your table. Have a communication session with that person and go, hey, what are your expectations? If they are one of a few POC players that you have in your project, also have the communication with them of going, I'm aware that it's going to seem as though you are a diversity quota and you are offering our channel the perception of that. How do we want to go about this? What do I need to know? What are your boundaries and lines and things like that as well? So honestly, again, it just comes back to communication first and foremost. I don't think you can over communicate ever.
Speaking of like some of the criticism, like you said, how do you take in criticisms or critiques or feedback that you may get from your audience, or well, more specifically your audience, I would say? Is that something that feeds into it for you, or is that kind of like, that's an opinion, I'm going to shuffle it there, I'm going to put it on the pile of your opinions, and I'm going to keep telling the story I want to tell?
I think it really depends on what the criticism is. If it's about the content, the way the story's told, the medium in which it's brought forward, I'm going to ignore it. Yeah. I really don't like when people say things like, oh, that's not how it's done, or, hey, I didn't like this particular thing. The truth of the matter is, we are content creators because we enjoy making the content. If we're making the content for other people, we're not going to enjoy the process as much as anymore. Mm-hmm. So make the content you want to make. Obviously, if there are critiques about how to improve the content you want to make, as you want to make it, listen to that. If it's people being like, I don't like this content, fuck those people. The content isn't for them. You'll find an audience that wants to watch it. I think the difference is if it is a critique or a criticism based on values, morals, working with POC players, anything like that, you really do need to probably consider that criticism and really look inward as to what you're promoting, projecting, and platforming. Yeah. Because you could be accidentally platforming morals or messages that don't actually align with your own without even realizing it.
Okay.
I could give an example of that if need be.
No, I get it. I want to dig into it though, but I don't know if we have the time to get crazy with it.
This is what I told you when you said it was only going to be an hour and a half, and I said, okay, I believe you.
All right, we're going to move on from that question.
Okay. We'll come back for a part 2.
Yeah, oh god.
It's my trademark now.
Are there any dream projects or people that you want to work with that you haven't worked with yet? I mean, you've worked with so many fucking people now in this space. Is there anyone that's really out there that you haven't had the chance to yet and you want to get at the table with?
I think one of the biggest lessons that I have learned of late is not to have those specific goals, because you might never work with those people. And you never want to be made to feel like you are failing because you haven't, when the projects that you're doing are successful in their own right. So for me, anyone. I want to work with anyone and everyone that I can, because again, I want to learn from other people and I want to develop as a creator. So I don't have a specific list, just people who want to tell stories and want to do cool projects, I think is my best answer there. Dream projects, I have many. Yeah. I have too many. They're all in my head. They're all crazy.
No notes though. No notes.
One day. No notes. I think the next one I do will have to have notes, and it will have to be very specifically produced. Uh-huh. But that is going to be me also bringing probably a team in to help me do it because that's not my style.
Yeah.
So bring in people that are better at the job than you are, and the project will grow and be better. Innovation.
Okay, we're coming down to our last two questions here. One thing I want to ask is, what was there a pivotal moment in your journey since we've gone from the beginning? We've started little AJ, and now we're here, running games for over 100 people. Was there a specific point in your life or in your career that kind of shaped and forged what we've gotten to today?
Yes.
What was it?
So I briefly mentioned that my high school and my university life wasn't great.
Mm-hmm.
I then ran away to Sydney and worked for reality TV shows. I had a very long and hard journey with mental health prior to that, but this era in Sydney was the worst. I got myself into a very bad place. I was a complete hermit, not even, joking about being a hermit, complete hermit for about 6 months. I gained an incredible amount of weight. I was already overweight at the time, and then I got myself to about 120 kilos, I think, which is pretty insane if you do the conversion for anyone who's using a different system. And I never left the apartment other than for work. I stayed in my apartment. I had Uber Eats 3 times a day, and I never left. I just was alone and miserable. I got to a breaking point. I flew back to Western Australia. I went into therapy twice a week. And I ended up having weight loss surgery because it was the only thing that I could really do. Youngest in Western Australia at the time to ever have that surgery. But I could barely get out of bed, let alone shower or go to the gym or eat good food. I wasn't in a position to be able to help myself. So I had this surgery. I ended up losing 45 kilos, which I think is I want to say 100 pounds. Could be very wrong there. I'll do the conversion. But it was an insane amount of weight. It was, I was about 2.5 times the size that I am right now. And I 180'd my life. I came out of that and I became the person that everyone knows today. Very social, very out there, very determined to pursue my dreams and goals. So, yeah. Pivotal moment indeed. No one would know who I was if I had followed the path that I had.
Yeah.
Even during that path, I still woke up every morning knowing that I wanted to tell tales. That I have had my business name since I was 18, I think.
Okay.
So I always knew that was the case. I just didn't have the strength or motivation or help that I did to get out of that, which is why I then ended up becoming a mental health motivational speaker for a part-time, because it was about making those hard choices and getting yourself out of bad situations. It's not easy, but
yeah, that's amazing. That's an amazing. Thank you so much for that.
No worries.
This is our last question.
Openly.
Yeah, good.
I
always feel like that's the best, is to talk about it than to not.
Yeah. Well, because people can feel motivated or share in that story as well. I think a lot of people, especially in the geek space, have stories like that, whether it's mental health or whether it's the bullying side of things. I think a lot of people who were passionate about the geekier things in life would have experienced something along those lines. I think everyone's had a story like that. And showcasing that you can do anything, regardless of your backstory.
All right. Well, we're going to come up to our last question here. We're going to dive into this. Then we're going to do the dicey question segment. So I hope you have your D20 ready. While we're doing that, chat, if you have any questions for AJ, go ahead and start getting those in the chat now, and then we'll get to those after the dicey question segment.
So I need to find a D20. Hold on. To the DMC. Go on.
Okay. Last question is, what message or impact do you hope to leave through your content in the geek space?
I live by a quote. You don't know how far you can fly until you spread your wings. My message, even if I was to pass away tomorrow, is to try. Because you never know if you can do it unless you do.
Fantastic. Okay, with that, we're going to switch over to Dicey Questions while those questions come in. Remember, if you have a question, just go ahead and type it in the chat, and we will ask it once we finish up here. Go ahead and give me a D20
Okay.
roll, AJ.
9.
If you could live in any fantasy world, which would you choose?
Oh boy. Any fantasy world? Okay. They're all risky. There's so many, but they're all terrible. Look, okay, I want to be in Hobbiton before shit gets weird. Like,
I mean, there's a couple hundred years there, right?
There's a couple hundred years somewhere in there where Hobbiton is peaceful, and I just want to be a writer in a cute little Hobbiton hole, telling stories to my fellow hobbits and drinking and eating and dancing the nights away with just merriment.
Okay.
That's what I want to do.
All right. What would be your least? If you had if they made you choose the one you want the least, which one would be?
I don't know. Choose the one that I want the least. Game of Thrones.
Fair.
100%. Do not put me in that world. I don't want to be around the possibility of dragons. Also, all of the lives in Game of Thrones are miserable. I'm good. I don't want that.
Hard pass.
Hard pass.
All right, give me another D20 roll.
Okay. 7. Ow.
If you had to befriend any superhero, who would you hang out with and why?
Oh my lord. This is testing my superhero knowledge. I feel like it's just a superhero that has money. I won't change anything about my life, but I'd have a benefactor to help produce more content. So I feel like Batman?
Okay. I don't see Batman as a TTRPG producer, but fuck it. Let's you can convince him.
Bruce. Yeah.
Bruce
look,
Wayne, yeah.
It's not necessarily Batman who's funding stuff, but somewhere along those lines. Maybe Iron Man.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not a superhero person, clearly. I've learnt that about myself today. I feel like I'm gonna hang up this call and I'm gonna think too much about who I am.
There'll be 20 names that pop in your mind.
As soon as we stop recording, yeah, it will come to me and I'll be like, damn it, why didn't I say that?
Blue Coast Guardian? I don't know what that is. All right.
I've heard that twice now, and I have no idea what that's in reference to. I think it's a Castleton thing, but it's something I've missed.
Oh, okay. All right, give me another D20 roll in.
All right. A 2. Terrible rolls with this dice.
Okay. What is your favorite franchise, and what do you consider the most overrated franchise?
I don't know if I have a favorite franchise. A lot of the franchises these days are overproduced and for the masses, and there's a lot of convoluted stuff that comes with it. Sometimes there are really shit spin-offs or movies that come with a lot of franchises these days. A lot of franchises have burned up and not done very well. I think of some young adult novel series that I used to read as a kid that then when they tried to make franchises kind of lost the era of that, because we had obviously the Harry Potter movies, and then I think it was like Twilight did really well. They did produce all 5 of those movies. And then they tried to do that with the Divergent series, and
Yeah.
I think that's when things started going badly for franchise movies.
Yeah, franchise young
Obviously,
adult
the
books. Yeah.
MCU is a bit different because that just keeps growing, and people are obsessed with the MCU of all of the superheroes and stuff. But I don't know if I'm a franchise person.
Well, I mean, it could be old, like the Lord of the Rings or
I mean,
Star Wars.
the original Lord of the Rings movies,
Yeah.
100%, hands down.
All right.
Yeah, I used to go every Christmas with my family to go watch everyone that came out. But then again, the Hobbit movies ruined it.
Yeah, that's fair.
And people have mixed opinions about the new TV show as well, because again, franchises keep trying to milk things rather than just nailing the thing that it was. It's a money grabbing thing now, and I don't like that.
All right, we're gonna roll one more question. We have no questions in the
Okay.
chat yet, so if anyone has any questions, go ahead and get them in now.
No one wants to ask me anything.
I know. I mean, that's a good thing. We covered everything. That means that's what it means. Is we got every question they could possibly have answered. Apparently,
Got it.
Glucose Guardian is a sugar daddy.
That makes a lot of sense.
I feel
Yeah,
dirty.
I just need a
knowing that
sugar
now.
daddy, is what I'm saying. Yeah. That is what I said. That is what I answered, technically.
fair.
I said, just a superhero I can be friends with who can give me money. I did just say I want a sugar daddy online.
Well, that's your fault.
Yeah. I did it to myself,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, just like you fucking made 100+ game. You're a glutton for self-punishment, I say.
Yes, that's accurate. But for the
That tracks.
progress of storytelling. It's always for the progress of storytelling and collaboration. Even the sugar daddy element was still that, too. It was to fund more projects. So, is it bad? Who knows? One more?
Please, please.
That is an 11.
What is the coolest homebrew thing you've seen or used? If you haven't used any, there's another question to this too.
Okay. This is a really self-plug and really quite self-involved, but my entire world for my AAP show in this studio is completely homebrew. There's no original races, there's no D&D modules being used. All the monsters, animals, fruit, trees, anything that you experience in that world is completely homebrew. So that.
Okay. And where can people find that?
Winter's Tales on YouTube.
All right.
It is called the Chronicles of Aelwyn. You can see, and you could go back and watch the World Builder series and see how it was all world built. It's all homebrew. That is me. Yeah, Schmick said AJ lives in the homebrew. I do. That is my bread and butter. And mostly because that way no one could call me out on not knowing the rules.
I was there when they were written, which.
Yes. I did kind of shoot myself in the foot a little bit though with that, because I got to a point where my cast were fighting monsters and creatures that didn't exist, and so when we had to make miniatures,
Yeah, it's usually troublesome.
I couldn't just get them. So luckily we actually had an original miniature designer sign on for season 2 of
course you
the
did.
Chronicles of Aelwyn to help us build
Of course
help
you
us
did.
build some of the creatures. But yeah. There
All
was I did shoot myself in the foot a little bit there.
All right, the second part of that question is, what kind of bender would you be in the Avatar world?
Waterbender, hands down.
Why?
Healing, fighting. I don't want to say bloodbending because that's really messed up, but like
I mean,
it's a thing.
you are a manipulator. You've said this already. You manipulated all those people
Wow.
to play your games. You're a monster.
Whoa.
You need to be stopped.
Oh no, it's been outed. And also, I mean, I think it comes hand in hand, but Winters was the last name that I chose and formed my brand around.
Mhm.
So being able to ice bend, water bend and make ice and snow and stuff, it matches.
Okay, that tracks. All right. If we've got no questions, then we're going to wrap up for the evening under an hour and a half.
Okay.
Like I said, because I'm a professional.
That's because no one asked questions,
Oh,
though. That's because
I left them enough times. I left them enough time.
Yeah, that's true. No one likes me, is what we.
Oh God, that's what we learned. Yeah.
They
So,
just like me for my projects. Oh god, that hurt too. That was too close to home.
all right.
No.
Anyways, go ahead, AJ. Let everyone know where they can find you. Plug all the things. Where can people find you next?
Okay, so you can go check out any of the crazy content that we've talked about today on Winter's Tales on Twitch or on YouTube. All of the social media is at WintersTalesCo, so you can keep up to date with all the behind-the-scenes content that we're doing. And you can find me in person if you are going to PAX Unplugged this year. I will be back in the US in December, even though I've been traveling far too much this year already. But I will be there for PAX Unplugged. I'm very excited. And then who knows what else I'm going to produce over the next year. So stick around and stay tuned.
Where should they stay tuned to see those announcements?
Probably on the Winter's Tales social media.
Okay.
Usually Instagram, or through our content. You can find our Discord and server and such. Or if you want to just check out what I do, which is I don't post as much there, all of my social media is at AJ Winters VO.
Okay. So. And that's all on your link tree, correct?
Yeah. Yes, it will be.
It will be.
I will edit it today.
Well, your link tree is in the chat for everyone to go ahead and follow you on all the amazing things. Keep track of the insane fucking projects you do. I've got nothing else for you. AJ, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. You are the first person to ever leave me at a loss for words in an interview. So
I will take that as a badge of honor. Thank you for inviting me and for having me here. It's been a lot of fun. I've loved it.
For those of you that are joining us because of the amazing Miss Winters, I'm Joe. I'm from New Age Geeks. You can find me also at New Age Cosplay, where I do some cosplay stuff, though I'm really not that good at it. I also will be at PAX doing stuff. So that's all I got. We love you, geeks.
Hell yeah.
Stick around for the raid.
We get to meet in person.
We've met in person already, AJ.
Whoa. I know, actually, I do know that we have, but hey, I met a lot of people.
Yeah, that's okay. No, I get it. You're right. I get it. No, it's cool. I'll remember that. I'll remember that.
I feel like we're really good friends now.
Won't cast me on your show, but don't remember meeting me.
I said you had to audition, okay? I'm not playing favorites.
So I know I'm your favorite now, though. So that's what you just confirmed. Thank you, everyone. Love you, geeks. Stick around for the rain.
I think I said that.
That's what I heard. Stick around for the rain. Good night.